Alright everyone, day 2, Zero to Hero in Power BI. We've covered a few things already, haven't we? We've got the idea of like facts and dimensions. We covered that, didn't we? That there were like facts, what definitely happened. And the dimensions, kind of what happened, what were they by, yeah? So a fact would be the sales, a total sales amount would be a fact. And that would be by month, by product, by salesperson, by customer. We then looked at like dates and the calendar and the idea of what a calendar does and how that can start to integrate in and how the relationships, in fact, are formed around that. So in a data set, it's not uncommon for a fact to have multiple date values. So you might have 3 or 4 different date values for a particular fact. It's not uncommon. So what happens next? So what did we say was next? We started to mention, didn't we, the idea of granularity, but I didn't really give you any concept around what I meant by it. So let's kind of have a look and see if we can make some sense of it and then have a look at it in action. Champion. Alright, so last week we put in a nice simple pivot, didn't we, of actual sales by month. So we could look at it and say, oh, all right, we did this many sales by month. But for the month, we actually just used a single date. Now this is really common. This is something that you will use consistently as you get into your reporting language, especially because you have to cope with granularity. So you might have, for example, budget, which is you'll have a monthly budget or a monthly forecast or something like that. And then you'll have sales that will be against a day or a week or something like that as well. So how does that all work? So we've got to get into this mindset, haven't we, that we've got our dates here. So if we look, we've got dates to start with, haven't we? And then those dates break into weeks. So we know, like for the example here, the 1st to the 7th is going to be week 1. The 8th to the 14th is going to be week 2, right? That works, right? And that whole period is going to be in month 1, kind of as an example, right? So you'd also, imagine, well, you're going to have as well, aren't you? We're going to have year in there as well. And that'll go all the way along there, as far as we need it to go. As you start to piece those together, you realise that if we looked at a notional date value here, say of 01 2022, as an example, okay, that's going to exist, isn't it? So that will be a date, that'll have a corresponding week, right? So we might call that week 1, right? We'll get into those later, honestly. There's more on that, right? It'll be month 1 as well, won't it? Month 1, and it'll be year 2022, okay? So we've actually suddenly got this idea that there's all sorts of little things that one date will correspond to, okay? And that's not just dates that it happens with. You see it the most in dates. You will see it the most in dates. But granularity is something you need to be really aware of. It's dates and times that it'll really hit you the most, but be aware of it and think about the granularity of the data that you're looking at and what you need to discuss as you go on. The other example is, of course, when you start talking about products and sub-product ranges or things like that, that you've got a specific product that corresponds to a subgroup and that corresponds to a grouping of products, yeah? So you'll see that a lot in some of the Microsoft sample data sets that they've got, like the Van Ersden. There's like, these are consumer goods, electronics, video player, right? Who's still got video players? Someone, right? So you can kind of see how that goes down. And then if you're saying, well, we want to know about the sales of video players or something around that, if your data corresponds to video players or to consumer electronics, you kind of need to think about what you're doing, because that old phrase, isn't it? Apples with apples. But then, apples are a fruit, pears pears are a fruit. Oranges are fruits. You know, tomatoes are fruits, but you don't put them in a fruit salad. So yeah, so here we are, aren't we? Back with what we did last week. Okay, we've got the idea, the different date values. We wrote a measure, and we then reflected a different part of the calendar against it. And we're using here the month granularity, sorry, the year granularity, aren't we? And we can see that here. So sort by year. So let's bring in the months, drag that in, drop it there. Let's click here to expand it down, to show me the next level down the hierarchy. Okay, and there we go. Straight away, I've got this built. Hardly any work was involved in that. That's easy enough. Now, this is all possible because of granularity, and that's how it works. So remember, if we go back to our sales data that we've got, the ship date is a date. It is a date value. Okay, the order date is a date value. And then what we're doing as we're building these is because it's a dimension. So a dimension of time is we are saying how many sales occurred within that time. It's an aggregation, isn't it? So we aggregate that up to start to say what's right. So along here, so we've got money, haven't we? And then we've got year, but we can also do year month. Okay, and it's all about, well, how big's that window that we're looking at? Are we looking at a month window? Are we looking at a year window? Okay, and it all allows you to divide those up and to focus your attention and your analysis on that in that particular way. So key, yeah, the key thing is to understand the granularity. Yeah, just like behind me, there's lots of ways to cross the river. But which one do you need for your particular analysis is going to be key, and it comes down to understanding granularity, because you might need that fine level of detail, you might need that higher level of detail. But what you can never do is add granularity to something once it's built. So if your data set, for example, only has monthly, so like total sales in a month, it's pointless someone coming to you going, oh, well, what happened on the 3rd of the month? Did you sell a lot? Because you can't divide it equally. You can't, you couldn't do that in analysis. So you need to make sure, if you're pushing down I'm going to be a hero in Power BI, I am going to be my company's Power BI hero, right? You have to make sure that you get the lowest granularity possible. So get that daily sales number, right? For all I said, don't worry about time, right? Get all the time information as well from it. You can strip the time information out as it comes into your model. You could decide to strip out and have a separate time dimension. And we can talk about a time dimension if you really want, right? There's lots of things you can do. But if you don't have that data, what you can't do is then, when you've done these are daily sales analysis, this is exactly what's happened on Monday to Friday, everything like this, blah, 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 we're amazing. And they go, oh, well, we've heard Tuesday lunchtimes are particularly bad. Oh, well, sorry, boss, can't do out. Right? Kind of crashing and burning there, aren't you? So you need to get your granularity right and be aware of what your granularity will enable, what it won't enable, and how you can expand on that if it's required. Okay, very important thing. Hope it helps. So that's day 2. Yeah, keep going into day 3. I think we're kind of covering granularity, the idea of that. So we're going to do some proper modeling for day 3. Do some proper modeling, look at actually starting to piece together what a model looks like. So have a great week. Take care. Ta-da.